What's up, everybody? So this is going to be a competitive guide on the brand new electric fighting Pokemon reviving Pawmot. And let's not waste any time and talk about that electric fighting typing that Game Freak has finally given us. They teased us with Electivire, they teased us with Zeraora, and we all know they should have been electric fighting, but it's okay. Game Freak has finally given it to us, and they gave us two this gen to make up for it. And it's a real nice typing. Defensively, quite solid. 3 weaknesses, 5 resistances, and these are some pretty okay resistances to have as well. Now, Pawmot isn't exactly the best defensive Pokemon, so it's not going to take advantage of that too much, but, you know, it is going to take advantage of how good electric fighting is offensively, especially in a metagame where there isn't stuff like Ice Core and Tapu Bulu and Landorus T to get on our nerves. Granted, Pawmot does have Ice Punch, which actually gives it perfect coverage. A large chunk of the metagame does not like switching into Pawmot at all with this combo, and you know, I'm really happy that we have it finally. Now, getting into Pawmot stats, we have a very average offensive Pokemon HP at 75. I'll have 115 attack, which is pretty good. Not like out of this world good, but you know, it's good. Then we also have 70 defense, 70 special attack, and 60 special defense. We don't really care about that 70 special attack, but 70 defense and 60 special defense with a pretty mediocre HP means that Pawmot's definitely frail, definitely not going to be taking any big hits. Then we have 105 speed, which is fine. Like, it's not fast enough for Pawmot to ever really be a threat to sweep, but it's faster than some common Pokemon like Chi-Yu and Garchomp. It's, you know, it's a good enough speed tier. 105 is not bad. As for the abilities, you actually get 3 really good abilities on Pawmot. You get Natural Cure, which obviously lets Pawmot, you know, absorb status. You can kind of cure yourself of burns or toxics. Obviously, you can't be parried unless you're terastallizing off of your electric type. But I mean, Natural Cure is just a generally like good ability. I don't think Pawmot's necessarily like the best abuser of Natural Cure, and I think Volt Absorb or Iron Fist are generally better on Pawmot. But Natural Cure is a good ability, so I'm not gonna say like, oh, never run Natural Cure. It could be useful. I think Volt Absorb though, just having an immunity is always going to be really nice. Yes, Pawmot does naturally resist electric anyway, but especially when you're dealing with a Pokemon this frail, like Pawmot will take big damage from strong electric attacks anyway. You know, like Pawmot can definitely take some big chip from like some strong electric attacks. So just having an immunity is always going to be useful. And then Iron Fist, most Pawmot sets are going to have 1 or 2 moves that, you know, utilize that 20% boost in power from Iron Fist, which is, I mean, that's a big deal. So Iron Fist is also a great option. I would definitely say Volt Absorb or Iron Fist is what you're usually going to want to go, but it's, of course, you know, personal preference at the end of the day. Now, getting into the movesets, the first move we have to talk about is the move that only 2 Pokemon in the entire game get, the brand new move, Revival Blessing. So the way Revival Blessing works is that it is a 1 PP move that lets you revive any fainted Pokemon on your team, and that Pokemon will be brought back to life with half of their maximum HP. So it is quite literally just the in-game item Revive, but as a move. Now, this is unprecedented in Pokemon. In the past, we've had moves like Healing Wish that let you fully heal a Pokemon in your party and cure them of any status conditions, but that move only healed. You couldn't revive a Pokemon that had already fainted with it. And very importantly, it made the Pokemon that used Healing Wish faint. So Healing Wish, you know, it came with a big price. Revival Blessing has no such price. You do not faint from using Revival Blessing. You don't even have to give up any of your HP to use Revival Blessing. It is a move with immense upside and no real downside. So going into the generation, naturally I thought that this was going to be, you know, incredibly broken. And in practice, I've realized it's not quite as absurd as I thought it would be, but it is still an extremely valuable tool and the primary reason you want to use Pawmot on a team. But the question has to be asked, what teams, what Pokemon are going to get the most out of Revival Blessing? And while I'm not saying that reviving a defensive Pokemon is useless, I do think it's mainly going to be for offensive Pokemon and offensive teams. I think they're going to be the ones that utilize Revival Blessing the most. Reviving a Scarf Goldengo or a Scarf Chi-Yu or a Dragapult or some other offensive threat that could come in and clean up in the mid to late game after Pokemon are worn down, maybe even worn down by themselves before they fainted. Those are the Pokemon that are going to have the most value, because those Pokemon, even at 50% HP, are going to function very similarly. While a defensive Pokemon getting revived, depending on the situation, it can be good. Don't get me wrong. But defensive Pokemon, a lot of them simply aren't going to be anywhere near as effective at half HP. So I wouldn't expect too much Pawmot on fat teams. Luckily though, Revival Blessing isn't the only thing that Pawmot provides anyway. When we look at the next move here, Double Shock, that is Pawmot's signature move. And it's basically like an electric version of Burn Up. 120 base power. Electric move, with the drawback being that you lose your electric type after you use the move, but you have to be an electric type to use the move. Luckily though, we're in generation 9 and terrestrialization is a mechanic, and if you terrestrialize into an electric type, you can use Double Shock as much as you like. You just have a 120 base power, adaptability boosted with Tera, electric move with 0 drawback whatsoever. So this is a really strong option. Yes, you technically could go Iron Fist boosted Thunder Punch. That's going to be 90 base power, and it's more spammable, but I think Double Shock is just, the power difference is so much, and you can use Tera to make that power difference even greater. Now, I get it. After Iron Fist boost, 90 BP for Thunder Punch, is respectable. And you could say, hey, Pawmot's usually not the primary win condition, for my team. Do I really want to have to use Tera on my Pawmot in order to spam electric moves? And I understand why somebody might prefer Thunder Punch, but I just think that that upfront burst in power from Double Shock, even if you don't Tera, I honestly think it's just worth it to go Double Shock. Also, you're obviously going to have your Stab, Close Combat. That's going to be your strongest, most reliable, spammable stab. You don't need Tera to spam Close Combat, obviously. And then you're going to have Mach Punch, which is great because it gets that Iron Fist boost if you're running Iron Fist. And I keep saying it in a lot of these videos, Dark types are everywhere. Think about a lot of the Pokemon faster than Pawmot, Meowscarada, Roaring Moon, Qianpao. You see stuff like Scarf Chi-Yu all the time. Mach Punch is a great tool, but you don't have to go Mach Punch if you don't want to, because you also get Ice Punch. And with Ice Punch and your electric fighting stabs, you actually have perfect coverage, because it lets you hit some of those Pokemon that would be annoying, like Dragapult, Amoonguss, Clodsire. Like, Ice Punch is good as well. You're pretty much always going to have some combination of these moves on a standard Pawmot set. And I do think this is the most consistent Pawmot set. The question is really more about the items. So one of the items you can use is Leppa Berry, and Leppa Berry lets you get an additional use of Revival Blessing, because the quote-unquote downside of Revival Blessing is that you could only use it once, but with Leppa Berry you actually are able to restore the PP and use it potentially twice. Now, you might not always get the opportunity to use it twice just because Pawmot's so frail. And if you want to actually be more consistent and kind of guarantee you can get it off at least the once if you can keep hazards off, then Focus Sash is another item option for you. Another option is also Scarf, because then you could actually use Pawmot as a revenge killer. You would probably just drop Mach Punch on a Scarf set, and then late in the game you could kind of throw your Pawmot in. Let's say you're in a late game situation. Let's say for some reason you don't have Ice Punch and you're against a Dragapult, and you have a Scarf Pawmot, and then let's say you also had a Scarf Chi-Yu earlier. You could always just, sacrifice your Pawmot, get that blessing, get your Chi-Yu back, and they didn't really have any way of stopping it because you're so fast with the Scarf. So that's another potential option as well. I think those three items are overall probably the best on Pawmot. I've seen people use stuff like Punching Glove, but I don't know if people realize that Punching Glove does not actually stack with Iron Fist, so it's like a complete trap item. But yeah, I think these three items are the ones that you should actually run on like a standard Pawmot set like this. So, like we said earlier, Revival Blessing is supposed to be 1 PP. But we already know we can break the rules with Leppa Berry, but you can also break the rules with Sleep Talk. Sleep Talk allows you to potentially roll Revival Blessing even if the move is out of PP, which technically means you could be able to revive 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even more times in a game. And if this set works, it will do unimaginable damage to your opponent's mental. But expecting your opponent to not only let Pawmot rest, but let it Sleep Talk several times to potentially roll Revival Blessing is somewhat far-fetched, especially when it's this frail of a Pokemon. It's not impossible for this to work, but it's definitely way less consistent than just a normal set, and because you're using 3 move slots on Revival, Sleep Talk, and Rest, you're also significantly hampering Pawmot's offensive potential. At most, this is just a high upside gimmick, but it's a funny one. If it works, I mean, your opponent's going to be tilted to hell. Now, quickly talking about VGC, I do think the game plan is mostly similar. I don't think Pawmot's like a super complicated mon in how it functions. But you do probably want to utilize Fake Out, as Fake Out is just one of the best moves in the game and gives Pawmot just another way to support its team. Also, similarly to singles, I think mainly it's going to be offensive teams that are utilizing Revival Blessing. I think being able to get a Garchomp spamming Earthquakes and wearing things down, or a Gholdengo doing the same with Make It Rain and having them come back, or a Final Gambit, Scarf Annihilate trading for an important Pokemon just to be brought back with Revival Blessing anyway. I feel like these, to me, like sound like better uses than bringing back a defensive Pokemon at half of its HP. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen more Pawmot on some of these like Tailwind offenses. Especially because Pawmot itself is actually like a pretty decent threat under Tailwind. But maybe we'll see more Pawmot as time goes on. Like, a lot of these teams can barely check these Pokemon one time, let alone twice. You could even do things like have Tatsugiri, just play belligerently with your Tatsugiri and then revive it later and then throw it in Dondozo's mouth with Commander. And it doesn't matter if Tatsugiri is half HP. He's inside of Dondozo's mouth. Like, there's all kinds of Pokemon that could probably do a lot with an extra life. It's an extra life. I mean, why wouldn't you be able to do a lot with an extra life? That's the thing with Pawmot. Like, Pawmot, so many Pokemon are going to be able to take advantage of Pawmot. So even in VGC, I think it has a lot of potential. As for Tera options, obviously, I'm just going to tell you, go Electric. I think Electric and Double Shock, I think the interaction's too good. I think Electric's what you should really be going like 90% of the time. If not Electric, you can go Fighting. Obviously, you get those really, strong close combats. You also get the, boosted Mach Punches, so that could be good too. I think defensively tearing on a Pokemon like Pawmot isn't super valuable in general though. So I would really just recommend going Electric usually, if not Fighting. As for other move options, I think the core moveset on Pawmot's really good, but like we talked about earlier, Thunder Punch is obviously an alternative to Double Shock. Drain Punch is similarly an alternative to Close Combat, although because you don't actually need Tera to spam Close Combat, I think the drop-off in power from Close Combat to Drain Punch is less justifiable, even with the Iron Fist boost. You do get other coverage options like Fire Punch and Seed Bomb and Play Rough, but Ice Punch is probably going to be your most consistent option in general. It gives you perfect coverage, unless you're like in a draft format or you're like counter teaming like specifically a certain team. I would say Ice Punch is probably going to prevail as the coverage option for Pawmot. You do also get some access to some supportive moves like Nuzzle and Encore, which can also be an option. All in all, while Revival Blessing is the star of the show, Pawmot is far from a one-trick pony. It does actually pressure a lot of the defensive Pokemon that people don't really like to see right now. Your Corviknights, your Garganacls, your Tinglus, your Dondozos. None of these guys like to see Pawmot on screen. And not only does that mean that Pawmot can threaten a lot of defensive cores, but it also gives you a lot of opportunities to get those free blessings off. So I think Pawmot is a huge boon to almost any offensive team right now, especially like Shed Tail or Screen offenses. And I also think in VGC, I think Tailwind offenses should probably be exploring Pawmot even more to enable some of the broken threats that we've been seeing on so many teams in Series 1 so far. So that's going to conclude this guide on Pawmot. I'm going to have competitive guides for every single brand new Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on this channel, as well as other content related to the game. So if you're interested in that, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and do all of that, and I'll see y'all next time.